So I brought Warren back to talk about a whole range of subjects involving Tesla, Tesla stock, Tesla advertising, and the rest. Hope you like it. If you do, hit the like button so I have Warren back on more often, and then subscribe, notify, and both of us do have Patreon channels, and both of us would love to have more support. So let's hear what Warren had to say. Talk to me about earnings day. What were your feelings after the call?
I feel very positive about Tesla, as I have for a long time. I think that different people heard what they wanted to hear. There is a group of people who are convinced that the people running Tesla don't know what they're doing, and that somehow some Wall Streeters know how to run a company better than people who actually run a company. I think that we are in a recession, and it's not called a recession, but we're in a recession, and particularly the auto industry and the housing are struggling because of high interest rates being an impediment to those particular sectors.
Uh-huh.
So, Tesla has been lowering price on their vehicles, and their volume, we already knew this, the volumes didn't increase as much as we hoped. I think probably the biggest number out of Q1 was the storage deployed, that they significantly increased. I'm pretty sure that was megapacks that they,
right.
I think it was a nearly 60% increase quarter on quarter.
Yeah.
Which is pretty radical. And by the way, the revenue numbers didn't reflect that. So I think the revenue is going to be booked later. So that's kind of a positive for Q2 or Q3. I don't know when they book that revenue, but the revenue is up maybe 15%, but the storage deployed was up 60%. The energy revenue was up maybe 15%, but storage deployed was up 60%. So that revenue is probably going to come later. So I feel very positive about that. Tesla Energy is looking very good. I mean, 60% quarter on quarter growth, if that continues, you just get nuts. And we have the Shanghai mega factory is coming. I felt like the team has been consistent about what they're doing, which is we will lower prices as much as we have to ship as many cars as we can. And there are people who don't want to hear that. They're like, no, you have to make profits. You have to make high margins. Like, well, they're still making pretty high margins. They're making higher margins than the rest of the auto industry by far, and they're growing whenever. Like, so BMW shrank sales, I think 13% Q4 to Q1. Mercedes 7% fall from Q4 to Q1. Tesla went up 4%, which is honestly a little disappointing. I was expecting Tesla to grow faster than that, but the quarter has 2 fewer days. There was some sort of Shanghai shutdown for like a line change and a holiday. So there were certain things that were holding them back. So there's an open question: is Q2 going to be higher numbers? I don't know.
Yeah.
I would expect really positive.
I would expect substantially higher numbers because you got all those Model Ys being built, all those additional Model Ys being built in both Austin and Berlin.
The question is, Austin and Berlin are growing, no question. Fremont is at least treading water. Are they holding Shanghai back?
Yeah.
That's the question I don't know the answer to. If they're holding Shanghai back, then how much are they holding Shanghai back? I don't know what to believe. But if they don't hold Shanghai back and Berlin and Texas continue to grow, then Q2 should be really big numbers. But I can't predict that. And I've taken the view that they don't have to grow that fast now to reach 20 million in 2030. I do think we're going to see a bump. They said Cybertruck deliveries will start Q3. I think that's overly optimistic. And maybe it's like the Plaid delivery event where they delivered 25 cars and then they didn't really start genuinely delivering until months later. But I think the Cybertruck delivery event, like I don't see a moment over the next 6 months that's going to juice the stock. If the Q2 numbers are up, so that would be July 2nd, right? If the Q2 numbers are substantially bigger on July 2nd, that could boost the stock. Presumably, Cybertruck delivery event would be before October 2nd. If it's Q3, it would be before October 2nd, which is the beginning of Q4. So I just don't see, if all of a sudden there's this moment when FSD crosses a threshold, and I don't think it's going to be before Cybertruck is delivered, where all of a sudden FSD there's this moment that I anticipate somewhere in the next year or two where Tesla says, okay, you need to stay in the driver's seat, but you don't have to touch the wheel and you don't have to pay attention unless we tell you to. The car will alert and say, hey, we need you to take over. But if that happens, I should say when that happens, I think that's likely to happen at some point. That will probably be a big spike in the stock. If they're actually able to deliver, we'll call it level 4. It's not really level 4, but call it level 4. If they're able to deliver level 4 in a generalized solution, it'll take Wall Street a few weeks to figure out what just happened. But that's a game changer. So I think Cybertruck deliveries, that'll be a big deal. That will wake people. That might wake people up. I mean, we never know with Wall Street. I can picture all the media saying Elon sells ugly truck, right? But I think my gut hunch is that that's going to be a really big thing, and that will wake some people up.
And then only a month later, we should have AI Day 3, where they do the reveal on a useful Optimus robot and start taking orders.
So you and I probably differ on that one. I think Optimus, the Tesla bot, is more than a year away. I don't think they're going to take orders on it anytime soon. I think I initially thought it would make sense for them to sell bots in a beta program, but I have heard nothing to support that theory. And it seems more likely that Tesla decided they're going to use the bots inside their own factories, which I'm a little disappointed in. But they know what like when I disagree with them or I say I'm disappointed, like the odds are they know better than I do. I'm pretty sure they seem to know what they're doing a lot. So yeah, I think that there's this fad right now that Tesla needs to advertise.
Oh yeah. Okay. So you want to talk about advertising?
I think we should talk about advertising.
Okay, go ahead.
So there's a guy whose nickname is Barry Black. Some call him Gary Black. And it's not just Gary, it's Ross Gerber and Mayor Thacker's jumped on this train and Brad Ferguson jumped on this train and like, Tesla needs to advertise. And there was a Twitter space where I was challenging Gary and Emmett Peppers and a couple others. And like, well, all right, you think Tesla needs to advertise? What's your plan? How much are you going to spend? What's your message? What media are you going to use for it? And they didn't have answers. All the people who say Tesla should advertise, they don't have any plans. It's just like, well, Tesla should advertise. And I was in I think it was a clubhouse room. I was talking with some friends. My friend Landon was a car dealer. And in the past, he sold his car dealerships. And, he's bought advertising. I've bought advertising. You probably bought advertising.
Lots.
Someone like Gary has this idea that, well, Tesla will do a $50 million test ad campaign and it will generate an additional $1 billion in revenue. Well, that would be a pretty good return on investment.
Really good. Really good. No, the goal in an advertising campaign is if you want to continue an advertising campaign, you usually want to be making 3 times your investment profit, not gross, but profit.
Right. Well, I've heard 5.
Okay.
Or maybe it's 5 times for revenue.
Maybe 5 times for revenue and 3 times for profit.
So here's the problem. Tesla has 1/3 of its sales in the United States, roughly. Right? Shanghai's the biggest factory. None of the Shanghai vehicles come here. None of the Berlin vehicles come here. So maybe 1/3 of Tesla sales are in the US. Maybe it's 40%, but it's probably about 1/3. So whatever you do in advertising in the United States, it's not going to affect sales in China, sales in Asia, sales in Europe. So, okay. And then, like when I asked, I said, well, what's the message? And Gary started talking about, how total cost of ownership is, so good. And I'm like, nobody promotes cars by saying it's cheap to own, especially not a luxury car.
Right.
You want to justify, your story is that this is going to increase the price of the vehicle. And you think the effective way of delivering that message is, hey, our car's really efficient. Like nobody advertises that in their cars. No, you want to advertise my car. The car is cool. The car is fast. The car is sexy. Ride in this car and that girl's going to go for a ride with you and she's going to give you a ride. That's That's the message. The idea that you're going to give well, we need to educate consumers or whatever. Like, really? And it's true that there's a fair number of people out there who don't know about range. They have range anxiety. They don't know these other features. Yeah, I suppose that's true. But what we've seen with Tesla all the way along is that word of mouth advertising has driven sales. That you deliver a great product to a customer, and the customer, if it's a great product and they love it, then they're going to tell their friends about it. If it's an okay product, they won't bother telling their friends. But Teslas are so good. And Teslas are the smartphone of cars when the rest of the cars are all flip phones.
Right.
When Apple came along with iPhone, Google wasn't that far behind with Android. They were behind, but they weren't that far behind.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Tesla's been making the smartphone of cars for...
Yeah, okay, Tesla. Okay. I wasn't following you there for a minute. Okay.
Tesla's been making the smartphone of cars for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And everybody else is still making flip phones. I don't think anybody else has crossed the threshold to a car that's actually intelligent, that, the feature set of a Tesla. And so when I take somebody for a ride and they say it does this, 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 and this, they're like, it does what? Yeah, I'll just say to the car, take me home. And the car starts driving home. They're like, what?
Yeah, and of course, an argument that I made the other day on Twitter was that Apple may not have maintained market share and got past, in fact, in market share fairly early in the game. But even when they were behind in market share, and even today, they make almost all the profits of the entire industry.
But it's just, I think that, yes, it's true that there's somebody out there who's buying a BMW instead of a Tesla.
It's true.
Okay. I think that they're going to regret that decision. But the idea, I think the people who are advocating advertising misunderstand how expensive it is and how hard it is to deliver your message. And you have to decide, what is the message? And the people who are pro-advertising can't even agree on what the message is. Right? And is it really educating consumers, or is it branding? Well, if you're trying to, establish branding, Teslas are sexy, Teslas are, cool, Teslas are fun, whatever. We kind of already have the strongest brand in the industry for that.
All right, let me throw out an idea. I agree with you on virtually almost everything you said, but let me throw out an idea. Tesla needs to go down market. They're going to have a $25,000 car in 18 months or so. So they're going to go down market. And right now in this recession, no. Okay.
They're going to have a $17,000 car.
Okay. All right. Make it 17, make it 25. Maybe they'll have both. They may have a top end one.
No, the next generation vehicle is going to be under $20,000.
I'm just saying, but they may have a $25,000 version of it.
Sure.
Okay. So, but they're going down market, whatever the case may be. And when you go down market, you're also not, you're not dealing with early adopters. You're not dealing with people that are heavily invested in research and in watching the news and going deep in terms of analysis of their next purchase. They're more likely to be entertained by some kind of a fun ad than early adopters are. Early adopters
sounds kind of elitist.
I am elitist. Of course I am. Because it's true. I'm a marketer. It's what I've done my entire life. I'm a marketing guy. So if you're going to go down market, maybe you need to do something to go down market. And I'll use this video to announce what I'm going to be announcing in more detail in a couple of days, which is I think that they should hire Mr. Beast and Joe Rogan. And that should be that's where they should be doing their advertising.
Well, I think Elon can go on any channel he wants whenever he wants, and he'll get more views by being interviewed by Joe Rogan than he does by being an advertiser for Joe Rogan. I think
every day.
People underestimate Elon's star power. Elon can go on any platform he wants, anytime he wants, and say, "Hey, I'd like to do an interview." If Elon called you and said, "Hey, Randy, I want to come on your channel," would you say no?
Oh no, I would just, you would see me being the next rocket headed towards Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, he drives views, so he
Right.
can go on any platform he wants, anytime he wants, and say, "Hey, I'd like to do an interview." And the truth is that Drew Baglino, if they wanted to send Drew Baglino out to talk to people, Zach Kirkhorn, there's probably 5 or 10 people at Tesla that they could contact some media outlet or some blogger and say, "Hey, we want you to interview Andre Karpathy," when he was there.
Mhm.
Right? Andre Karpathy did some interviews.
Yeah.
With Lex Friedman, let's say. So if they wanted to do that, they could send people out and have them appear on, Steve Jurvetson, who's a board member, one of the early VCs in Tesla. Steve Jurvetson could get interviewed.
Oops, we broke out. Okay. Start that part again about.
Steve Jurvetson is a board member of Tesla, board member of SpaceX, one of the early investors in both companies, a venture capitalist. Steve Jurvetson could get an interview anywhere and he could talk up Tesla. Kimball could get an interview and he could talk up Tesla.
Yeah.
There's no shortage of talented people at Tesla who could go out and get literally free media coverage if they wanted it. So the idea, and I remember there's this moment when I confronted Gary about, all right, what's the plan? He says, well, the ad agency figures that out. Like, do we know Tesla at all? Tesla doesn't outsource.
Yeah.
Tesla's vertically integrated. They're going to if they're going to advertise, they're going to have their own advertising department. They're not going to outsource to some other ad agency. They're going to do it themselves. The idea that Tesla's going to outsource, if you think that Tesla's plan is going to be, we're going to hire some third party to come and manage our advertising campaign, you just don't know Tesla. And it's striking to me that a guy who's been following Tesla so closely for so long doesn't get things like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's not just, I'm picking on Gary, but I don't, it's not really about Gary. It's a whole host of people who, well, Tesla needs to advertise or they won't be able to sell all their cars. Like, well, people said they wouldn't be able to sell 500,000 cars and they did. Now they just sold 1.3 million cars. They might sell 2 million this year. Well, don't you think at a certain point they're going to advertise? And my answer is really simple. The day that they're not making a far better product than anybody else, maybe then they'll need to advertise. But right now, when you have the only smartphone in a world of flip phones, right? When you have the only smartphone car in a world of flip phone cars, there's no problem selling them. The challenge is getting the price down enough that you can deliver it to a much larger market.
Yeah, no, I again, on the basic theory that you're suggesting, I've been a proponent. I've argued as much on this channel as well as on Twitter. I'm just saying that there's the other aspect of the move in terms of demography is also going to the Midwest, going to the flyover states. The flyover states actually have an antipathy with regard to Tesla that needs to be overcome.
We have a solution to that problem.
What's the solution?
Cybertruck.
Yeah, well, that might help. But
Cybertruck is going to change everything.
It's a year away.
I'm going to go to a country bar, right? I'm into country line dancing. I'm going to show up at a country bar with my Cybertruck, and everybody's going to go, "What the hell is that?"
Yes, the owner will want you to leave because there won't be anybody inside drinking beer.
Yeah. No, I've got a rough plan to shoot a music video. Country line dancing music video out in front of my favorite country line dancing bar, and get some pretty girls and a couple of guys who are good dancers, and I know the song. It's a song called "The Muddy Muddy." I want to do a version of "The Muddy Muddy" where we replace the big black truck with big Cybertruck, and change the words around. And I got some good ideas, and I think that middle America, if you want to call it that,
right?
Pickup truck America.
Yep.
When they figure out what Cybertruck does, if we're correct, that its feature set is going to be compelling.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Not for everybody,
right?
Not initially, but in the short run, a significant percentage of truck buyers are going to say, "Wait a minute, I can't scratch the paint? What do you mean there is no paint? It's bulletproof? What? Wait, it'll tow how much? That's going to take off."
Yeah.
And it's a polarizing style. So half the people are going to hate it, but half the people are going to love it.
Right.
And if a quarter of the people love it, it's enough that it spreads the word in those communities.
Sure.
And when you talk about down market, I think you got to recognize that the primary demographic of the down market, lower end buyers is that they're younger, and younger people already like Tesla.
Very young, the very young
They-
people. Yeah.
They, the 20-year-olds like Tesla, they just can't afford to buy one.
Right.
So you deliver them a $20,000 Tesla, they'll buy it.
Yeah, but I'm not just thinking of the younger. I'm not thinking of the down market because they're younger. I'm also thinking of the down market because they only make $30 an hour. They don't make.
Right, but
an hour.
but demographically speaking, people with less money tend to be younger. Older people
that's
tend to be
true.
richer.
Right. Yeah. I think I'm visualizing mostly the flyover states. I mean, you're in Florida, I'm in California. You just drove to Texas. I'm sure you saw way less Teslas on the road the further you got away from Florida. When I'm driving around in Southern California, I see Teslas like almost every mile. There's another Tesla on the road.
Well, there were a lot of superchargers on the way.
No, there's lots of superchargers, so we're ready for them. I'm just thinking that if you could, Joe Rogan, Mr. Beast, all these kind of guys really have those folks watching, listening, whatever, and that it would be very inexpensive and doesn't require a massive design. You don't have to spend millions and millions of dollars on a fancy ad.
But again, Elon calls Joe Rogan and says, "Hey, I want to come on your show."
No, but you want it every day. You want it consistently, playing for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
That's going to be expensive. I think you're underestimating how much that costs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe.
And I think that Elon can do an interview once a week, right? And those interviews are going to get played for days. And like I said, you could get Drew Baglino or Zach Kirkhorn or there's other people. I mean, Elon's the big celebrity,
huge,
but there's a lot of smaller channels where they're like engineering focused or whatever, and you bring out Drew Baglino and Zach Kirkhorn and Lars Moravi and have those guys do interviews about here's what we're doing with Cybertruck.
Yeah.
Like if Lars Moravi did some interviews with like truck magazines about here's why we made Cybertruck the way we made it, and what's the guy Priestley for Semi, you could have those guys go out and do a bunch of interviews about what they did with the trucks, and that would get a lot of attention.
Yeah. Okay. So you're just.
But I just don't think they're not going to have any trouble selling Cybertruck, and Cybertruck is going to be a massive boost to the brand.
Right, and they won't have any trouble selling the $18,000 to $25,000 car either. I don't think that's going to be an issue.
They don't really have trouble selling Model Y either.
My biggest issue, I don't know if you've seen my recent videos on this. My biggest issue is this year they are going to add 500,000 to 900,000, depending whether it's 1.8 or 2.2 million cars. They're going to add 500 to 900,000 new Model Ys to what they need to sell. And then they're going to need to do that again the following year. I'm not saying that they can't do that by lowering the price. They can. The question is whether there might be some combination of advertising and lowering the price that might be a wiser move to move that amount of metal. It's like literally if they sell 900,000 more Model Ys this year, that would be like adding one of the top 5 previously existing automobiles in the world in 1 year.
I'm going to go with what they say, which is we don't have a demand problem. We have an affordability problem.
Right.
As they're able to drive the cost of the vehicles down, they'll sell more vehicles.
Right.
They are super practical. They are fun to drive.
Safe.
They are super safe. They're comfortable. Model Y is probably the best car that's ever been made.
Right.
And, again, when you think everything's a flip phone, then you don't see that a smartphone doesn't have to have 17 different models, right? Nobody said Apple doesn't make enough versions of the iPhone.
Well, they did, but they were wrong.
Right. When anybody who said it was an idiot.
Yeah, right.
So I actually think that the arc of Tesla, as I see it, is Model S and X have become archaic, and they are not the future of the company. Model 3 has started to become archaic and is not the future of the company. Model Y is the short to medium term future of the company, and Model 3 cut into sales of Model S, and Model Y cut into sales of Model X. Model Y also cuts into sales of Model 3.
Yes.
And now you're going to have the next generation vehicle platform come in, and it's going to undercut Model 3 from the downside. So I think Model 3 starts to fade away. There's this thing in the master plan document where they had like a distribution of vehicles.
Right.
And I think they vastly overestimated the S and X class of vehicles and the 3 and Y class of vehicles. I think the next generation vehicle platform is going to be the dominant one. And I think they left out a smaller vehicle in the future than that. I think there's going to be another round of even smaller and even more affordable vehicles where they go down to like a 40 kilowatt hour smaller pack and a, basically mini sized car that like would work in India.
Yeah, I think assuming that there is a future for drivable cars as opposed to everybody getting a robotaxi, I do think there will continue to be that market for either luxury looking and or the size is luxurious. Maybe the accoutrement in the interior needs to be luxurious too. But in other words, I think that the Model Y and or the Model 3 might need to be changed somewhat as the new ones really ramp up. But it's going to be 2026 before we see significant numbers of the new generation vehicles. You'll have a really good year in 25, but 26 will be when you start to see millions literally.
Well, that's one of the open questions is we know they're going to build Giga Mexico soon.
Right.
They've probably already decided where they're building multiple additional next generation vehicle factories. Are they going to wait until Giga Mexico is up and running before they build the next ones, or are they going to build 4 at the same time?
Right.
The path to 30 to 20 million vehicles depends a lot on, are you going to scale? Are you going to build 4 of these factories at once? Or are you going to build 1 and see what you learn from it and then build 3 more later?
Right.
Or 2 or 3 more later. So I think that's an open question. Like I beat the dead horse about Japan, but I see a next generation vehicle factory in Texas or somewhere else in the US, 1 in China, probably Shanghai, 1 in Europe, probably Berlin, and I think 1 in Japan. I think that's the vehicle that works in the Japanese market. And people don't know Japan is the 3rd largest car market in the world.
Right. And they're all little cars.
Ahead of Germany. They're mostly little cars, but they're after China, US, Japan, and Germany.
Yeah.
If you count Europe as 1 unit, then Japan is 4th, but still it's a large car market and there's a lot of potential.
Right.
And I think Tesla I don't know how hard it is to get a factory open there. And the fact that the Japanese board member decided to leave may be a sign that they're not going to be able to get the factory up and running in Japan. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think what my earlier point was only that even if you started, digging dirt next month in 4 different locations, et cetera, you're still looking at the end of 24 before any product's going to come off the line. Certainly 3rd quarter, 4th quarter before you're going to have a handoff. And then that means 25 will be your ramp year, which you'll get significant amounts, but it won't be millions and millions. But 26 is where you'll see the millions that could dramatically impact.
Yeah, what I'm suggesting is it's possible that they're actually putting that off another year or 2.
Oh, really?
If they don't start building if they only build 1 next generation vehicle factory in Mexico and they don't start building the other ones until that one's done,
then it could be 27.
Is off a year. I don't think they're going to do it that way, but I don't know.
Yeah. It'd be nice if Elon said he wanted a crystal ball. I don't want a crystal ball. I just want to be a fly on the wall. If I knew what Drew and Elon and the rest of them, if I knew what they knew, this conversation would be much more interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Warren, as always, it's a thrill a minute to have you on. It's always good because as much as you and I almost agree, we do find things that we can at least kick around that we're not in total agreement on. But I know for sure you're wrong about Optimus. But other than that, if you like having...
Well, somebody asked me this. Somebody actually asked me
if
I was as optimistic as you are on Optimus. And I'm optimistic for the long term.
Uh-huh.
But I think it's going to take longer to get there than you think. I think it's, once they crack the nut, then Optimus is a massive game changer for society. But I think it's 2 to 3 years minimum before they make them not that they don't make them at any scale at all. Before they're making millions, it's a few years away. And before they're distributing them to regular people, I would like it if they would do a beta program for bot. And I was able to buy a bot in beta and train it.
Right.
But I don't think they're going there. I think they're pursuing a different path, which is disappointing, but they probably know what they're doing better than I do.
Well, the time will definitely give us an answer to that one. So if you like having Warren Redlich on this channel, please hit the like, please subscribe, please hit notify so that you can find out. In fact, you can look below and see the programs that are going to be coming up sometimes a week in advance. I'm now putting it down there for you to see. So please hit the notify. And then both of us have these Patreon things. If you'd like to support either Warren or myself or both, hit the Patreons. That information is also below. Thank you again, Warren. And to you in the audience, it's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle or audiobook now.